for 34 years. I got to tell you, I think sometimes when we are born here and raised here, we forget what it means to be here. This gentleman knows what it means to be somewhere else and then cherish America. He is the president of the Jeffersonians. He has really seen the differences between a democratic republic and a tyrannical government. He knows the difference, and he knows what he's looking at when he looks at our present form of administration. He is a business owner, and today he is a very large taxpayer, a father of four, a great American, Alex Velasquez.
The White called me a few weeks ago and asked me to come and fill in for him. And he asked me particularly to take some of his issues and bring it home. See how we can apply them here at home versus just a national level. So what I'm going to do for the next, he told me about, what, 60 minutes? To go ahead and, what I expect for you to live with from my talk is two main things. First of all, to show you how one little rule has been forgotten and it has been the demise of our nation. And two, with three thoughts, three myths that our government leaders currently want us to continue believing in order to undo what we've been trying, what our forefathers have aimed at doing for 200 plus years. First of all, a good close friend of mine, getting to this rule, mentioned even this morning that we have committed the golden rule to memory, but let us now commit it to life. Now, raise your hand for me if you absolutely hate to be asked to raise your hand in public. Yes, okay. Now, second, do you know that rule? It usually says, treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. But the rule actually states this: you shall love the Lord your God with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your heart. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it: you shall love your neighbor as yourselves. On these two commandments hang all the law and all the prophets. So whenever folks in government tell us that government laws are not based on faith, on religion, tell them they're wrong. Tell them they are wrong. They do not understand the premise of our Constitution. Now, based on that, I was introduced as a businessman, and I have been writing, almost finishing a book called How to Sabotage Your Company in 5 Easy Steps. By sabotage, I simply means how to undo with one hand what you have been aiming and working on doing with your other hand for years. How to sabotage it. I also have several titles coming: How to Sabotage Your Family, How to Sabotage Your Faith. And today I'm going to address the main 3 points of how to sabotage your community. And these are the 3 myths that I want you to take home with you. The first one is believing the myth of 2 sides. In the national realm, we see it as the myth of 2 parties. And I'm going to break it down for you in a moment. Second, the myth of security. How we are all secure. It is such a myth. And third, the myth of progress. Whenever we let our liberal opponents define the definitions, they automatically win the game right away. So we will address the myth of progress. But first of all, let me ask you this question. T party stands for tax enough already. And I often ask this question: are we really taxed enough already? Yeah. If I bring up to you the background of one of our senators, and I say to you, socialist, big taxer, who comes to mind? Who comes to mind? Of course, Mary does. But what if I told you that no, I'm actually talking about our other Republican senator? Because when it comes to the Constitution, it does not matter the gender of our representative or the name of the party. It simply means how close are you to the benchmarks that the Constitution established. Therefore, one thing that we must be so careful about, because the foundation, the premise of the Tea Party is to get rid of the status quo in Washington. So it does not matter. It doesn't matter that a Democrat or a Republican is driving the chair or driving the bus. If they are taking us over the edge, we've got to stop the bus and turn it around. Therefore, the biggest myth, and as you hear later on about the history of tax and income tax, the biggest myth that we have been sold for decades is that of a two-party system. Well, I'll give you simply a brief glimpse in the next few seconds that there are not two parties. It is the Federal Reserve that controls both parties to accomplish that which they intended to accomplish back in 1936 when they took over our taxes. Therefore, it does not matter who rules the houses, either one. If they are driving us over the edge, we must demand that they stop and turn us around, regardless of who's driving. That's the first one, the myth of two parties, the myth of two sides. The second one is the myth of security, and bringing it home more to the local level. Our parish is changing dramatically over the last few years. And in the next 5 years, it will change phase like you'd never believe it. And the numbers state so. The rate of crime is incredibly high here in East Baton Rouge Parish. And the main reason is because we have forgotten the first rule that I told you earlier. We no longer fear God. Therefore, we no longer fear the fact that my neighbor's stuff does not belong to me. And I am willing to go take it because there is no punishment. When we allow criminals to simply get away with crime, then our whole culture changes. Therefore, those are some of the stats that we need to be looking at. The third one is that of progress. 6 months ago we were debating the bond issue, and our premise here at the Tea Party was that we did not accept the definitions of the proponents of a $1.5 billion tax. Progress simply means holding on, as we see it, to the foundational principles of our nation. It does not mean paying $9,000 and $10,000 per pupil in order for them at the 3rd and 4th grade to not be reading and writing. That is not progress. I co-founded a school 12 years ago with 5 other families, and for the life of it, our kids could learn by the time they reach, our kids could read, I should say, by the time they reach the 1st grade. If you expect it, you can do it. Therefore, if we expect the things that we stand for, we can accomplish it. But the question always comes to the end, are we taxed enough already? With that, I simply will remind you of the boiling frog principle, and I'll close with that. We have been in a nice pond of water for decades, a century and a half. We are the most progressive nation in the country. I know it, I've seen it. I'm heading back to Colombia for half of the summer. I will see it again. But one thing that we must realize is that certain elite have been turning the water upon us for decades, and we are 1 degree away from getting boiled to death. 1 degree. We're at 211. One more and we will boil to death. And we have barely enough time to realize that we are tired of these politicians running our nation, running our state, running our cities, running our communities in order to enhance their name and their own personal glory. And I would venture to say that any one of you can do a better job than 95% of those whom we have elected to their seats. So please give all your attention to the next speaker. He will give us some ideas on how to get out of this boiling pot. But until then, let me review. Let's go back to the 3 myths that we are no longer believing because I've just exposed them. The myth of the 2 parties, the myth of security, and the myth of progress. Be mindful, think through these things, my friends, and I thank you for your time with us here, and I wish you the best. May God truly have mercy upon us. Thank you.